Hello, everybody. And you are not dreaming. You are not in an alternate reality. You are seeing what you're seeing right now. We are finally doing the long awaited co op game Resident Evil 5 here on the Nemesis Project. I am Joe Dubs.
And I'm Zach.
And boy, oh boy, we finally beat this game. We actually beat two games because Resident Evil 3 Remake was so short, but that's for another time. Hopefully next week, if Zach is free. But
We will see.
we will see. But let's get right into it. Since we haven't been doing this for a while, the segment. What do we got here? Oh yeah, the intro, development of Resident Evil 5. I'm gonna hand it off to Zach because I only have a few things to say about it. But Zach, the development of Resident Evil 5, what do you want to say about it?
Okay, so before I really kind of started looking into this, I kind of recalled like the really old trailers for this game, and I went back and watched them again before I started digging, and it just confirmed like everything I thought before. And so like I wasn't like I imagined all this stuff and everything.
Mm-hmm.
How this started out as a single player game, and there was some kind of intent to have like some kind of like atmosphere or something. Um, did you watch the trailers I sent you?
Yeah, and wasn't there supposed to be like hallucinations and shit?
That was something that they kind of vaguely talked about. Like, I don't know if that was ever like a for sure thing. It didn't really come up in my research.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like I recall seeing something about that before. Of course, I could be mixing that up with RE4 too, because that was supposed to be a version of RE4.
Yeah.
Um, but it was originally it seemed to feature just Chris solo. I think still doing BSAA stuff, and a lot of the characters that are in the game would still be present, but like their roles or their appearance would just be kind of different,
Mm-hmm.
except for like Wesker, obviously. Um, but like Sheva was still in the game, but she was like a member of some kind of like a militia group that she kind of teams up with, befriends Chris, so she'd be like the helper, like Rebecca or something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Jill wouldn't be like basically kind of an attack dog to sick on you. Instead, like Chris would just rescue her from like a research facility, and she'd kind of help out in the game and stuff. Um, Looks like Irving it would still be in it too, but there wasn't much about like what his role originally was. I don't even think I saw concept art for him.
Mm-mm.
But Excella looked pretty different, and apparently she was like a secretary to like the CEO of Tricell or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know what exactly they're planning to do with that. Like, why would you create a character that's secretary in this game? Whatever. But there was going to be this part where like Wesker was subservient to like the Tricell CEO or some shit, and like in the middle or later part of the game, he just assassinates him and takes over the company.
I mean, he kind of does that in this one a little bit, but not like assassinate. He just goes, "Oh well, that bitch is dead." I got the.
Kind, yeah, like something else I found out. I was going to bring this up later, talking about like the files in this game. Uh, I forgot all about this, but apparently, when you complete chapters of the game, you unlock other files that you can read
Huh.
outside of the game. And usually they're like pretty extensive bios of like the characters in the game and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you get Chris's bio and it like just tells you everything from like the start of his career to like where he is now. Uh and the same thing for like all the other characters. Apparently Excella was just pretty much put into place by Wesker to take over Tricell, so he kind of runs Tricell anyway through her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what happened. Um what else do I got here? There would be liquors still. I don't know if they'd be bigger or not, but they were a thing.
I mean, we did face lickers, but they were annoying as shit.
They were annoying and they were really tiny. And there a tyrant would appear in this game. And I'm like, fuck, it'd be cool to see a tyrant like in this game, actually.
I wouldn't mind like a Nemesis in this game.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they really had planned for the tyrant. There wasn't even like there were no sketches or anything. They just said there was going to be a tyrant, and they said I think the tyrant kills Excella or some shit. I think that was like the only art. Um, this part I thought was really cool. Apparently, there was going to be a scene where a bunch of El Gigantes would siege this town, like 10 of them, and you playing as Chris uh, would do like a turret section with Jill, and then Barry comes in and helps, and the three of you kill all these fucking El Gigantes.
See, that game sounds so much better than what we played.
I know it's like that's like ridiculous and over the top, and it's a turret section, which there's a lot of those in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But that one sounds fucking cool because there's like 10 of these things just crushing shit.
I wonder if they were scared to put too much fan service in this game.
I don't know. Maybe, I guess, because this was like in this period of time where it seemed like they kind of wanted to get away from like a lot of the established stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of all I got. It's the only other thing I can talk about is there was they talked about wanting to have this tech where it's like the lighting would kind of play with your vision and stuff, where like if you go like in real life, if you're in somewhere really dark and you go outside in the bright light, it like you can't see shit for like several seconds.
Yeah, that goes on my hallucination thing where the light fucks you up so bad that you start seeing shit like shadow things. And they were gonna put that in the game, and they took it out. I wonder why. Maybe because this was during 360 and PS3, if I remember.
That's right.
And I don't think the technology was good enough to do that.
That's my guess. I couldn't really find any notes about it, but like that's probably what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that would have helped with the atmosphere because you'd like walk out in and out of places and like yeah, and then same thing. You're in somewhere really bright, you go somewhere really kind of dark, you can't see shit.
Yeah.
I always thought that idea was really cool, and then like when I got the game, I was like, I guess they just dropped that concept along
well,
with a few others.
well, when I first played this game, I was like, where? Here's the thing, like I wasn't big into looking into the game. I think this was one of the games I actually followed what you and Andy do, where I don't look too much into the game. Like if there was a trailer, I didn't watch it. So I was just like, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna get this game and play it. So you gotta know, like my expectations is, wow, Chris Redfield's in it. I heard about Jill. I didn't go looking for it. I'm like, I'm gonna go in this game. We're gonna fight zombies, even though Resident Evil 4 didn't have zombies. I was thinking because while they're going to Chris Redfield, maybe they're going back to its roots. That it would be awesome. And when I started playing this game and then doing the inventory system, I was like, what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?
I that's usually what I do with games that I know I want. And I guess in this case, you thought you knew you wanted Resident Evil 5 no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty much in the same boat, even after I started seeing this stuff with like the co op and stuff. I was like, I guess I still need to play this game. It's a follow up to Resident Evil 4. And yeah, I didn't react very well to it when I first played it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't like. Well, not a lot, but there was a sizable amount of fans that this game bothered them.
And I don't know if I told people that are probably to watch this recorded. We are doing this live on my Twitch channel on twitch.tv/JoeDub35. And Andy, yes, we are live. So welcome. Live, baby. We're doing it live. Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm probably one of the people that thought that Resident Evil 4 was okay for what it was. I still don't think that it's a Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4. I was one of the people that were highly, not highly, that's being too harsh. That was kind of disappointed on how it was straying away from its roots a little bit. So when I was going into this game, I was like, maybe we'll get another. Like worst case scenario, maybe we'll get another Resident Evil 4, which was an okay action game. Um, but I was hoping it would go back to its roots because there was I guess a silent, not a silent minority that was making noise saying that Resident Evil 4 is not a Resident Evil game, and basically they didn't listen because a lot of people love Resident Evil 4. Um,
Yeah.
so like me going into this game and seeing the live inventory and the um, fucking co-op and the AI and shit, I had flashbacks of Resident Evil Zero when I was playing this game.
Yeah, it's a good point. I never really did like put that together actually.
Hmm. But anyway, there was some marketing in this game because of the location, because are in Africa in this game, and this was before the SJW era. I guess this was kind of like the pre-stages of SJW, where they were just like a white man is going in Africa shooting black people, and people were just like, "This is garbage." And I believe some game developers came out and actually, Zach, you were saying like some British film festival thing or whatever, where came out and said, "No, that's not the case. This is not a racist game at all."
Yeah, like um back when this was coming out, like on the cusp of it, and when it did, there was a pretty good amount of contention about whether or not this game was actually racist. I remember Guy Kroll was like, he was like kind of a big freelancer game journalist
Hmm.
back then. He was one of the biggest proponents of that. Uh, and uh, I I remember like a lot of people were talking about it back then, but it kind of went away like within the same year. Like I think after the year was over, it just kind of petered out, so to speak.
This was during the time where nobody gave a shit. They were just like, "Dude, it's a video game. Why are
Yeah, and
you?"
that's what some people's response was. It's like, dude, it's a video game, and then like the other response is like, well, I mean, like, he's fucking in Africa, man. Like, what? I guess they shouldn't have said it here. Like,
I mean, it was an odd spot to put this. I guess I don't know. Wesker's like, oh, if we're gonna bring a virus, we're gonna bring it to Africa. I don't know.
yeah,
What that
here it
even?
is. I found it. The British Board of Film Classification
What the
looked at
fuck?
looked at this game and basically just said, no, it's not racist. Just quit it. Like,
Mm. And if I remember correctly, I I think people were like, let's put Sheva on the cover to like make it look like Chris is not a racist because
yeah,
I think it was Chris and Jill. And what's funny is that Jill was like in the later half of the game and not really a main character unless you count the DLC. But that was before the DLC.
yeah. There's a lot of speculation about Sheva, like when she came in. A lot of people thought before like she wasn't even a character in the game, and I found out, well, that's not really true. She was apparently supposed to be in the game the whole time,
Hmm.
but they just kind of, I guess, promoted her role. And I don't know if that was a response to like this necessarily. I think the story just kind of changed. Like now that I've looked at it, and they were following trends. They saw co-op action games were getting really popular.
Hmm.
Like when this, like around '07, when it seems like they kind of fully formed their idea. That's like when shit like Gears of War was coming out and stuff, and Army of Two and things like that. And they're like, oh, maybe we should try to do this. And I guess they did.
I mean, it kind of would make sense a little bit if they were getting some backlash and they didn't want to deal with it because of the idea of the development that it was supposed to be a solo game with Chris. So maybe, but that's just assuming because we don't know. We'll never know what's going to happen because
No,
the AI in this game, if you don't have two players, is pretty garbage.
yeah, and I guess that's a good segue to start talking about the gameplay, like the differences
Mm-hmm.
between 4 and 5 and stuff.
Um, Differences. I want to say the shooting is the same.
That's pretty much the same. The shooting and like all of the melee attacks and stuff, that's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
They did add this thing I noticed only in this playthrough, where if you guys chain melee hits together, it's like if I would hit them and then you'd hit them, that would open them up for a third hit, like a big power hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I never pulled that off before, like the previous 2 other times I've played through this game with somebody. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Doing tag team moves like we're in WWE.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else.
The inventory was a big one.
Yeah, the live inventory is kind of stupid, especially when you're in the nitty gritty of things. I remember a couple of times, mostly me, not you, but mostly me during during the gameplay. Like I would try to switch, and I would just like pretty much be panicking to the point of me trying to get my weapon or get my herb or first aid spray. But
Yeah.
but later on, you get into it. Everything is like a muscle memory. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the
There's
a
oh, go ahead.
the AI is, like I said before, is terrible. Um, because you have to do AI moves in order to do something. Like in Resident Evil 4, yeah, you had to like control Ashley by telling her to stay and go. But this one, like you had to like get certain items, and sometimes she wouldn't be there. And when you have a live inventory and also have to worry about Sheva because she can die and you fail the mission or fail the game, it's annoying. So
Yeah.
I was really glad that I played with Zach, even though like certain times we died, and like we were like, oh, I guess we got to do this again.
Yeah, I guess there's a gameplay difference there too. Besides inventory, real quick, is there's certain points in this game where like you do a boss fight or there's some kind of weird like co-op puzzly sequence, and like they don't really exactly explain what you're supposed to do, or there's no context clues for it exactly.
Oh, you mean the laser thing that we had to like go from room to room like Indiana Jones and shit?
Yeah, I mean, like with that one wasn't too bad. It's like, oh, okay, so we go here and we beat up this blue thing and pull this, or yeah, actually I'm confusing that with something else. Yeah, that laser one was like kind of annoying
Mm-hmm.
because you're supposed to like shoot this beam of light off of mirrors. This sounds like a fucking Tomb Raider puzzle, but here it is in Resident Evil 5. And if you run across the beam, it kills you instantly. It doesn't hurt you, it kills you. And that sucks. It basically makes it to where it's like, okay, you need to stand up on this area and just stand here and watch me figure this puzzle out.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other person who's playing with you basically just stands there with their dick in their hand. They can't do anything. It just kind of sucks.
Oh, well, there's certain part of the games where it when you have to assist somebody on a ladder and they're supposed to do something, and there was multiple times where me and you were standing there and be like, "What do we have to do? Like, what is the mission here?" Like, usually games will be like, the character will say something stupid, be like, "Hey, I really gotta, smash that rock," and like to give you a hint. This one is like, "Nah, bitch, you gotta find out yourself on what to."
Yeah, which is, hey, don't get me wrong, I'm all about like kind of figuring it out on your own. That's why I said context clues, not just telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
There really aren't any context clues, and it doesn't even tell you what to do, so they kind of lose on both sides.
Yeah.
Um, Uh, there was some of the boss fights were like that too. Like, remember that one with we were trapped in that room and there's like a fucking like furnace or some shit that you're supposed to seal the monster in
Yeah,
and burn him, and it took us like a whole round to figure out that's what we were supposed to do. Like, I think one of us died.
yeah. Because what's funny is like throughout the room they had canisters, and we're like, as a Resident Evil fan, it'd be like, oh, you got to blow them up with the gas canisters. That's what you got to do. And then eventually we found out that the room over there that we could lock the monster in and turn the furnace on, we can burn them. And that took 3 times, I believe, because it, with the movement in this game, like when you finally get to the switch, the animation takes way too long, and then
Yeah.
monster gets up and he's like out of the room.
There was another one that was kind of like that too. That one where we had to like basically one of us had to run around in circles while the other person grabbed a flamethrower and just shot it with the flamethrower.
Oh, dude, I don't know how we beat that. We had no bullets.
That boss sucks. It's because it just absorbed all our bullets is the thing. It just that boss is just not good.
I think we pretty much knifed it at the end. We were just for like fuck it, knife it, and then he
Yeah,
finally died.
that was stupid.
Hmm.
But
Uh
then the other bosses are good though, like the weird bat. Um,
oh, the Wuhan bat.
yeah, we were calling it the Wuhan bat a month ago.
Yeah.
um, God, what was the other bosses that were kind of interesting?
The Tricell bitch. Here's the thing that weirds me out, Capcom. When a person is like regular size and they become like this kaiju monster,
Yeah, basically what happened.
what the fuck?
Yeah, this like 130-pound woman like grew into like a monster that was like larger than an aircraft carrier somehow.
It was bigger than the ship, at least, or almost.
Yeah. Like, okay. I mean, I get like, G virus bullshit, but that was like over time.
Hmm.
And that was like transformations due to regeneration from damage. Same thing for Nemesis. He would change when he would take so much damage.
Yeah, but
Uh
it was fun though.
yeah. There was good like that boss was kind of fun because you got to shoot him with like the fucking ion cannon from Command and Conquer. The bat, Wesker is fun.
Hmm.
Like, well, the first time you fight him when he's still human, he's fun.
Yes. The jail fight was fun because we kept on like grabbing her and like doing like Frankensteiners and Hurricane Ranas and shit and like suplexes. So,
Yeah, that boss is like super easy. Like once you get rid of Wesker.
hmm I want to say the enemies, they were kind of similar to Resident Evil 4 a little bit. Um they had the trolls in there, the big troll monsters. They had uh, the Lost Plagas, kind of like in the beginning, just the regular, I guess, bottom tier Lost Plagas people. Or who?
Yeah, and then they had like the mutations later, like where they'd start growing the big tentacle out of their head,
Hmm.
or they change into like at that one point where they start changing into like this weird fat thing with a tail, and
Oh,
that's the only weak point on it is the tail. And if you let it come up on you, it one hit kills you.
oh, dude, I hate that fucking thing.
I don't know what the fuck those are called, and like part of that I feel like is just because it's the game's fault because they don't like put in a note about it or anything.
Hmm.
But there's a few enemies like that. Another one's like that weird spider thing that it has like glowing fuck me lights you have to shoot, and that's the only place on it that's vulnerable.
Yeah, and
Because if you
then
shoot it anywhere else, it excretes this weird smoke, and it causes you to cough if it gets close, and then it one hit kills you no matter what.
they had like Call of Duty maps where like you would fight these Lost Plagas with like machine guns and rocket launchers.
Yeah, that's where the game really starts to like kind of drag and feel like weird. Is like you spend more time shooting, having firefights with enemies than like I don't know, doing Resident Evil shit.
Well, I think what really annoyed me is like there was a part where the bugs or whatever, that insect thing that was huge as hell, like came out of its like eggs, and then like the two guys with the miniguns and shit came out, and like all these people with like weapons and shit, and it literally was like, imagine Call of Duty made a Resident Evil mod, and that was what we were playing.
Yeah, it, I don't really care for that part either because it gets ridiculous. But um, geez, I'm trying to think of something else. Like the liquors, they brought liquors in and they're like really truncated compared to like the liquors you remember.
Well,
Um,
remember that one part where we had to split up, and you were like, because I was trapped in an area, and you had to go open up a door, and you had to go like in the top area, and like nine liquors were like coming after you.
oh yeah, yeah, in the ruins area.
Yeah,
Yeah, that wasn't fun. We had to retry that part a few times just because it was like they swarm you with these guys.
and we were doing different strategies. We first we did it like balls to the wall. We were just like, we're gonna shoot a couple and then run and then try to push, but the animation was way too slow to where the liquors were starting to overpower us. And then I believe we got out. We bought a sniper rifle, and we I just started sniping them off one by one, and then pretty much made it bearable for Zach to push the item.
I also got that's when I broke out the grenade launcher and started killing bunches of them with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the only thing we could do is like you snipe them and I'll just blast them with this grenade launcher. That was the only thing that worked.
I'm trying to think what else is a difference in similarities in this game compared to four.
They
Uh,
kept the weapon upgrades
yeah, the weapon upgrades were there.
and
Kind of,
all the different weapons you could buy too. There was like variety in that.
I'm sad the merchant guy wasn't in this game. What are you buying?
Hey, that was supposed to be a thing too. There was going to be a merchant again, but that they axed it pretty early on.
I wonder why. Everybody loved him. I loved him.
My guess is when they decided, okay, this was going to be co-op. That's probably when they killed it.
I guess they wanted to make it a semi uh, serious, I guess, or whatever.
I guess this game does feel like it takes itself more seriously at times, and then there's other times where it's like ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like that freaking Irving guy is like my favorite because he should have been in Resident Evil 4. He was in the wrong game.
Yes, he was.
And like Excel is kind of silly, but like at the same time, it's like I could buy that. Whatever. She's some stuck up like I run this company bitch person.
I want
Um,
the inventory was way different from 4 to 5, because 4, it felt like you could fit everything and your mom in that inventory. And this one, you had to like strategize between the two characters and what they're holding and shit.
yeah, you're pretty much back to like set slots, and you have 9 this time. One of them usually just would hold like a melee vest or something if you wanted, but you can use it for anything else.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I miss the attache case, and I miss like being able to pause and like fuck with your stuff. Uh, there was something really satisfying about arranging that thing the way you wanted, and it's like at the same time, like they want to go back to the slots, but then they don't give you the pause to be able to mess with your inventory. So it's like you have to put everything you want to use quickly in the specific shortcut slots, like on your D pad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like me, I always use 2 different guns, and then maybe put grenades in one slot, and then put in a healing item on the last slot. Because if you don't put a healing item on any slots, you got to open up your inventory and where is it? Oh, there it is, and then that might cost you.
Yeah. I noticed the similarities on like map design compared to Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. Like they had to have a boat map. Usually, when there was like enemies, they had like platforms that they would like walk on and stuff. Like there was a lot of like similar map uh, setups, but obviously they were different locations. One was like in Spain, and this one in Africa.
They're also usually bigger,
Mm-hmm.
a lot bigger. And I think like that was another thing was originally when it was going to be single player, they were still going to have like it looked like all these guys attacking you at once, which is a lot. And that might have been another thing where they're like, oh, maybe we should turn the enemies down. I don't know. Maybe we should just throw in another player.
It's like, why?
I don't know. Other than that, like the co-op thing we already touched on, I feel like that's kind of it. I mean, this game is very different from the previous ones just because it's similar enough to 4 and it shares a lot of the similarities, and that makes it very different from like the classic games.
And this is
There's
and
not really much to talk about there.
and this is the first time Resident Evil actually went away from its survival horror genre. I believe Resident Evil 4 was still under the survival horror genre, even though it was more actiony.
They still had like a finger grasp on the horror and the atmosphere element. And that's something this game totally lacks is both of those things. The atmosphere more than anything. When I play this game, I don't really feel like an atmosphere of any kind ever.
I Yeah, I didn't feel scared or creepy in this game at all. Resident Evil 4, I had a creepy factor just based off of how they did things in Spain.
Uh-huh.
This one, eh, because of the daylight kind of fucking ruins everything.
I feel like if they had somehow made that old concept work, it it could have had an atmosphere and it could have been cool and they could have played with you a lot with that light to dark thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be.
It is what it is. So, I guess we can move on to acting. Because we're in Resident Evil 5 and because voice acting is very prominent during this time. This is where you have your Troy Bakers and your fucking Nolan Norths and everybody's, top notch and top tier. The acting was pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
Um, there was a couple of cheesy lines, but you have to put the cheesiness in Resident Evil games. It's just a staple. Uh, I know Chris was good. I know Wesker was really good with acting because he's that overtop villain type of voice.
Yeah, this is when DC Douglas took him over, and this is like a lot of people kind of look to him as the Wesker
Mm-hmm.
now. My favorite's still the one from like Resident Evil 1 remake, but yeah, I like DC Douglas's take too because this version of Wesker is just kind of funny
Yeah,
and it fits it. Like he's like this smarmy asshole that knows he could just kill you whenever he wanted.
I'm like Neo.
Chris,
Chris.
so we meet again.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot to talk about the acting. Irving was funny.
Super over the top.
Yeah. Sheva I thought was okay. Well, I mean, she was fine. Nothing really impacted me with like the acting. I wasn't like, oh, this is amazing. This is Oscar worthy. Like, I would never say that for a Resident Evil game.
Chris, the guy playing Chris, I thought did a pretty good job in terms of like the drama and him acting and getting upset or showing pensiveness, emotions. But Yasheva, I thought was always just kind of blah. Like her actress did fine. It could have been the writing. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, DC Douglas stands out as Wesker, but and everybody else is kind of just and that's it.
Yeah,
Jill's okay. She's just not in the game long enough to really say much about it.
yeah. And Jill was kind of silent because she was like, I'm normal, and that's it.
And you don't see her again unless you buy the DLC.
Yes, which we will talk about. Yeah, that's all I have to say about acting. Are you ready to move on to the meaty flesh of this podcast?
Oh, real quick on the acting. I think this might have been the first game where they actually used mocap.
Really?
I think so, yeah. Because I don't think they had that in 4. I think all that was hand animated.
That's interesting. I need to look that up. All right, the Meaty Flesh, different versions of Resident Evil 5. So we had the 360, the PS3, and then it got remastered on 4 and PC, and then it came out for the Switch, correct?
I think I actually don't know if it came out on Switch or not.
I believe it's probably coming out soon because I know they announced 4, 5, and 6.
Let me
Because,
check here. Yep, it's on Switch. Okay.
yeah.
It's also on Android TV and whatever Shield Android TV. Okay, that's the same thing. Weird. But
Fucking stupid.
yeah, this didn't have like you had the base game, and then later on in life with the initial release cycle, they had the gold edition that had all the DLC in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they did these HD re-releases, so to speak, uh, they have the version you buy online on the store, which is just the standard game. But if you bought a physical copy, it was the gold edition. And we
Uh,
we kind of discovered that when we were talking about, well, let's do the DLC together. And it turned out you actually bought it digitally and you didn't have it.
yeah, I actually had to play one of the DLC on Steam because it's the gold edition on Steam.
But I will say, because I played the original release back in the day, and I thought back then, well, this game looks good. You know, it at the time it was a really good looking game and everything.
Mm.
But like when I bought this a couple years ago for my PS4 and I played it again, I was like, oh wow, this looks really good now. I like the frame rate was like 60, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, the frame rate was pretty good. I was highly impressed when I played it with you. I think I mentioned it on the stream. I was like, "Oh, this looks cool." The only thing I complained about was the aiming on it. It felt a little weird, but I just had to get used to it.
Yeah. There's little quirks in it still yet though. Like some of the texture work's kind of low res in spots and you can tell.
Hmm.
But otherwise it looks really good. It really benefits. Like if you don't lost a copy or something or you'd like to play it again, I'd recommend buying it for PS4 or Xbone or the PC or something. I don't know how the Switch version runs. That's always a gamble, I feel like, depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah. So pick your poison, everybody. And I'm pretty sure that when the new generations come out, they're gonna have a remaster of a remaster. So
Remaster.
yeah, like for retarded. Anyway,
You can't say that.
bonus modes and unlockables. So we had the two DLCs. Is there mercenary modes in this? I
Yeah.
okay.
Did you
I
never play the Mercenaries in this?
no.
Oh man, this is like honestly, it's kind of better than the Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 4,
Oh shit.
just because it's like there's no bullshit. You just play by yourself. It's kind of like liberating, really, when you play Mercenaries mode in this game, because you're stuck with like your partner all the time, be it with an actual player or the AI if you want to like torture yourself.
Actually, I think this was a big thing when it came out because people were like, "Oh, since we got the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live, we'll get to play online on Resident Evil 5." I think that was a big marketing push as well because
Uh, yeah, because they had like Mercenaries where like you could play against people,
hmm.
and I think I tried that one time, and I remember it being like super laggy and like annoying, so I just stopped. And I think you could play with partners, like cooperatively. You could do Mercenaries as well.
That's cool.
Um, I remember doing that. It's fun, but just playing by yourself is cool. And what's cool is like it's they got different versions of each character, so they have different loadouts and stuff too. Um, but when they later expanded on Mercenaries, they called it like Mercenaries United or something. They added characters to the mercenary mode, like when they did Gold Edition and shit.
Hmm.
So they add like Excella, uh, a different version of Chris and Sheva, I think. Um, and they added Rebecca and Barry. and like Barry's fun as hell to play because he he has like his big ass fucking revolver like on him, but it's not a weapon you can use. It's just like a something he keeps on his vest. But
That's
what happens is when he like downs somebody, like if you do a certain melee attack, it says Miranda rights, and he's like, he'll say a line like, "What is this?" and he shoots him in the head and he kills him. And he's like, "I have this," and he just says all his lame ass lines when he executes people.
that's fucking glorious.
Yeah, like honestly, I loved it when they added those characters in it. Made it more fun. Like Excella was fun too because she'd do this shit where it's like you cap them in the knees and she'd like grab their face and then she'd like bitch slap them and sometimes it caused their heads to explode. It was just funny. Mercenaries is just fun. This and it just expanded on like what they did in 4. Honestly, it was like one of the reasons why you would kind of keep playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they added the story DLC, the Desperate Escape and Lost in Nightmares.
So I guess we'll touch up on the Lost in Nightmares a little bit. Um, so when you play the original game, you're kind of like, what happened to Jill? Why does she have this like bug jewel on her titties? And uh, why is Chris trying to find her? Well, this DLC kind of tells you what happened, kinda a little bit. So Chris and Jill, since they're partners and shit, they are investigating. Is that the mansion, or is that like another mansion that they come upon?
I think this is the original mansion that the Spencer Estate mansion in Raccoon City was based off of. There's this like reoccurring thing through the series where it's like we built a mansion here in the Arklay Mountains, and then it's like this shit gets really confusing about this. You play Code Veronica, and then when you're in Antarctica and you go underneath the base or some shit, you find out there's a Spencer Estate mansion clone under there.
Mm-hmm.
And you find files that tell you, oh, this is based off of the original Ashford Manor or something. But then you play this game, and apparently it's Spencer's mansion in Europe or some shit. And it's so, which is it?
I don't know.
Did they all just really like this one mansion and they just copy each other? Like, it's confusing.
I think that's where the fanfare kind of comes in, I guess, a little bit.
I guess so.
Because I'm always a fan of the mansion. But it was interesting. This DLC felt like a Resident Evil game, and I kind of wish that they formulated that game into this game. Where that
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as I was playing it. It was like, I wish they could have made the whole game like this.
Mm-hmm. They had this one enemy that was kind of following you throughout the whole game, where he was like very like it looked like a mutated monster from a T virus or a G virus or whatever, and
Yeah.
it had a dragon axe. He was dragging like a pyramid head kind of thing, even though that's a different game and franchise. He was terrifying at times. I'm like, dude, this guy's not dying, and there were zombies in waters and shit, and you had the Wesker fight, which was funny because I was like, I did this before.
Yeah.
So
Plays pretty similarly to the Wesker boss fight in the original game. The big thing about this DLC though is like you pretty much go through this whole mansion and it's like really atmospheric and there's a lot of mansion like puzzle things and you find files. You even find a copy of like the Keeper's Diary from like the original game, which is really weird.
mm-hmm.
And that enables you to like unlock a key item you guys need to like progress and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's also a neat little Easter egg in there. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so like in the beginning where you start in the main room in the main hall, you can go look at the double doors that lead you into the mansion. And it does this thing where the camera zooms in on it and then it just cuts back like nothing happens. You're like, okay, what the fuck was that about? Well, if you do this 3 times, it forces the game into a fixed camera perspective and you can play through this whole DLC like that.
What?
Yeah, you can play through the whole DLC with fixed camera like this.
Did you do it?
I've tried it. It's kind of unwieldy because of the way you aim now. There's like no aim, and it's like kind of weird because you're doing the laser dot thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is doable though. I've never tried to do the whole thing like that because I just thought it's just doesn't control right. It's really cool to see though.
Maybe they were just like, let's put this in here so people can hate it, so we don't get cry about fixed camera angles and shit.
I don't think anybody hated it. I think people were just like, oh man, that's so cool. It was gone.
No, that's what I'm trying to say. Is like maybe Capcom was trying to make people hate it, and people. I still love fixed camera angles, even though I kind of like the remakes where they do the, had a Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, are doing it third person.
Yeah.
So did you mark out when Jill speared Wesker through the window?
Yeah, I said spear. I yelled spear, I think. And then
Jill.
then that was the end of that tale. She speared Wesker through the window and they fell down a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I guess she was dead. They never found her body or some shit.
So are they trying to imply that maybe Wesker caught her, or like took the impact of the fall, and like she was knocked out, and then that's when he put the jewel buggy thing on her titties to control her?
I think he experimented on her for a while before that happened.
Okay.
So that was always like my understanding.
I enjoyed the DLC. Like I said, I wish this was the game, and it wasn't. I mean, it was in the DLC, but it should have been in the main game.
Yeah, I like this DLC quite a bit too, actually. It's a fun diversion.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, Desperate Escape, is just like super duper actiony. It's like it cranks it up to like 11, like what this game does.
It's Jill trying to escape, right?
Yeah, with Josh, that other BSAA guy that survived.
Mm-hmm.
He does German suplexes, by the way.
Fuck yeah.
it says when you stun them and you get behind them, German suplex. So it's like, oh my god, yes. He also does the people's elbow. It doesn't say people's elbow, it just says elbow drop.
Okay. Maybe a person.
He has wrestling moves. It makes it cool.
Nice.
But yeah, that's all Desperate Escape is. It's just you fighting like tons of enemies, trying to get to the escape point. And the end of it, especially, like you'll go through a lot of areas that remind you those parts in Resident Evil 4 where you get to kind of like those weird military complex-ish areas, like on that island and stuff.
Yeah.
Where there's guys trying to shoot you with like fucking cannons and things like that. And you got to go around this really long, like, kind of out of the way path to get up there to stop it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it kind of did remind me of Resident Evil 4 a little. But yeah, and then at the end, there's just like this part where you fight like a bunch of enemies that just keep spawning and like kind of bosses, sub bosses, and you wait for a helicopter to come pick you up.
What? It's always a fucking helicopter in Capcom. I just noticed that.
In Resident Evil, yeah, there's always a helicopter. There's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
The guy comes in the helicopter and then he gets like killed, and then you guys just take off.
I think
that's it.
I think Resident Evil 2 is the only one that didn't have a helicopter. It was a train.
Yeah, it was a train, and then they walked on foot. I like how Resident Evil 2 remake it, though. It's like they're walking on foot, and then there's like a trucker, and he's like, hey. And then the guy's just like, fuck off, and he doesn't pick them up. It's like, yeah, that's probably what my reaction would be if I saw like 3 really dirty people on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how did you like it? Did you dig it? Would you play again that Jill Escape DLC?
Yeah, it's pretty fun because it's just constantly moving action. And I don't think either of us died once when we played it either.
Oh, you played with a friend?
Yeah, I played with my friend Philip. We played it together online, and neither of us died, if I remember right. We went all the way through that thing without dying.
Because I suck. Um, Other than that, I guess we can move on to some good stories in the journals and diaries. I didn't read too much of the journals because I I'm gonna be a stickler and be like, I fucking hate this game and didn't really care for the story at all. But there were certain files where I was like, I'm glad they put Umbrella was like uh messing around with this Ouroboros or whatever the fuck virus is called. Like I was glad they put that in there, but as far as like me liking it, I don't know. What about you?
Uh, it's weird because this is something that kind of goes against the whole of the game, like so to speak, like the flow of it and everything. Uh, it's like they decided to make this game a co-op game, and then at the same time they decided to kind of shore up a weakness I think that Resident Evil 4 kind of had, which was the files and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was some pretty good little files in Resident Evil 4, but like compared to previous games, it's lacking a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, and in this game, they put a lot of effort into the files. But the thing is, you're playing co-op online with somebody. You don't want to stand there and read this file. You want to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
That really kind of goes against the flow of the game. So like the only time you're ever going to get to actually read this shit is if you play it by yourself and you're being a masochist, or you read them after the fact, like out in the main menu. And like I said, a lot of these are uh they're very Resident Evil y files. They put a lot of effort into them, and they go through like a lot of detail, kind of explain some backstory stuff. Like there's shit that you find files that date all the way back to like the 60s of them like finding the progenitor virus shit here and everything.
Yeah, but that's like with the Metal Gear Solid 5 kind of thing, and yeah, also with I want to say Death Stranding with Hideo Kojima is like they have these games that are like outlandish and different compared to its original. And I'm just talking about Metal Gear Solid 5. And then it's like, oh, if you want the story that you've all been waiting for, you got to listen to all these like interviews and like read up all these documents and stuff to get the backstory.
I guess, but that's how it's kind of how Resident Evil's always.
Yeah, but the difference between all the other Resident Evils and compared to this one is like you have this like actiony Resident Evil 5 storyline that I wouldn't even classify as a Resident Evil game. Um, and then you have the files that are Resident Evil like and has a story of it. I don't know. It just feels weird that they mix those two together.
It doesn't really mix well,
Mm-hmm.
but there's interesting files you find though. Like there's pretty good ones in the Lost in Nightmares one. Like you find Spencer's diary, and that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's probably where they really lost the plot, though, in my opinion. That's something that happens through this game's story. Is it it goes through the motions to make ties to Umbrella and like the previous stuff and everything, and then within the same movement, they break it all and just destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you thought Resident Evil 4 just kind of threw everything out. Well, this game goes like, oh well, hey, it's coming back, it's coming back. Guess what? And then it just throws it off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. It's ridiculous shit. It's like they changed the motivations of like two of the characters, like two of the main villain characters, in my opinion. Uh, like they make it to where Spencer just wants to become immortal and shit. Because he's dying, he's getting old, he's dying, and it's not fair or something. And that was supposed to be the whole reason for the T virus progenitor virus research this entire time, was to make him immortal. And that wasn't the case. It was actually he just wanted to exploit this shit for money. and and the same thing for Wesker. It's like they make it to where he wants to take over the world like a fucking anime villain, or like a Final Fantasy villain. And in reality, he was also driven by greed.
Yeah.
It's just like they wanted to, like, they're really basic kind of motivators for these villain characters, but then they make them like over the top and ridiculous all the
It kind of feels like and I know certain developers, like head developers in Capcom, were just like, we need to make this more actiony. But you also have probably had most of the team go, but this is a Resident Evil game. Let's stick with the lore. And I guess you could kind of tell that in the game. It shows.
Not to kind of go way ahead of ourselves here, but that was one of the things I really liked about Nikolai, and they didn't really stray that far off from how he originally was.
Mm.
They just kind of expanded on it. In fact, they even emphasized he's like, I can make a lot of money off of this if I stayed here, but fuck you, bye. Just leaves.
I kind of wish, and again, going ahead, I kind of wish, like, you remember the part in the original where Nikolai, like, killed one of the Umbrella mercenaries and he, like, flew out the window? I kind of
Yeah.
wish they did that in the new one.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was a scene. I mean, there was kind of that scene. He just shoots Murphy in the head.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Talking about some other game now.
Resident Evil 5. Do you have anything else to say about the journals?
No, other than like I just wanted to make a point that they really they're trying to mix oil and water with that by keeping that as part of a thing. Like the Resident Evil 4 notes were usually pretty brief,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a couple ones that were really interesting. Like whenever you find Luis's notes, that was kind of cool because it actually gave good backstory on the Plaga shit.
Yeah.
That's it though.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have much to say about that. I kind of talked on my personal story where I kind of like went away of not looking into the game, and then I also, when I started playing the game, I hated it right away because it was just not survival horror and there was no zombies. So,
Yeah.
what about you? Any personal stories with you?
I remember when I first played this, I was kind of frustrated that I was forced to co-op it with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was very against type for this series. And I think I played through it with my buddy Philip, who I just played through with it again like a year ago. And then we did the DLC together, the ones you didn't have or you couldn't play with me.
Yeah, I only played the
Um,
one Nightmare.
yeah. And like back then it was like, well, it made it more bearable for me, but like I hated this game because of what it did to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess you kind of had that reaction with 4, but like honestly to me 4 was just such a good game that like it kind of didn't really bother me that much in a weird way. But this one I had that reaction. I was like, God, they killed Wesker, they fucked the story up. They changed so much of this, so many important parts of the story.
Well, 4 was so good that when, all that gap till Resident Evil 5 when it finally came out, like, it was the best selling Resident Evil game ever.
Yeah.
And, like in movies and other things, just because it's, you know, made the most money doesn't mean it's good.
Nope. And that's a note about this game. Up until 2018, this was Capcom's best-selling game.
Mm-hmm.
When Monster Hunter World dethroned it, which is weirdly surprising.
It's better, Monster Hunter. I'll say that.
Huh.
I recommend it. It's a Monster Hunter game, just like the title.
I never could really get into those.
I thought so too, but then I played it and I was like, this is interesting. You gotta play with friends though. That's a bad thing though.
I hate friends. That's why I don't like this game that much.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, we're done with the meaty flesh. Unless there's something else you needed to chime in there.
Oh, I will. This is something else I wanted to bring up. Talking about like lack of atmosphere. The soundtrack for this game is just really kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
There's no tracks that set a mood or anything necessarily. It's just kind of there. Sometimes it enhances the action a little bit, but nothing really stands out as memorable at all.
There was certain parts where it had like the movie. I don't know if you ever seen the movie of The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. Like when there was like some fighting in the game. They had like that type of music, and I was like, yeah, I get it because it's actiony, but like I don't want action in my Resident Evil game. Get it out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I'll take your word for it there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just even coming off of Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 had a great soundtrack, and this is just there, and it's pretty disappointing.
Like I said, and I'll probably bring this up when we talk about Resident Evil 3 and all the future remakes that they're going to be doing, is when Capcom strikes gold, it's like they go crazy. I don't know how to explain it because like you'll have people that like a certain thing and they'll do the exact opposite. Like they could have made a Resident Evil 5 just like how they made Resident Evil 4, but they had to change shit. Uh and people didn't want it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not sure. And what sucks about that is Japanese devs are usually they don't tend to talk a lot about like their processes or anything. Uh, they're still in the habit of keeping a lot of that stuff kind of close to the vest. I don't know why this happened the way it did, but I still kind of feel like they were trying to follow trends because back around this time, that's what Capcom was doing.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to follow trends. They were trying to westernize all their games. Uh, it was like kind of, I don't want to say it was a mandate, but it was like one of their key senior guys at the time, Keiji Inafune. He was really big on that. He was like, we need to westernize everything. Uh, we're getting left behind here because that's back when Japanese games were kind of like, for some weird reason, it was like the games media turned really hard against Japanese games. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was like totally unfounded because yeah, they were kind of clearly going through some kind of growing pains thing in that generation, but not all their games were bad like they were trying to make out. Um, they really got on that idea train, so to speak, hard. And I think in the end to their detriment. I don't think really anything came out positive of it.
See, I don't get like the research in that is like seems lame to me. Like we need to go Western. There's a lot of Western video game players that prefer JRPGs and everything that is not Westernized. Like when I think of Final Fantasy, I don't think of I want to have a Final Fantasy like Final Fantasy 15. I want it to be like 7, 8 and 9 and 10, like old school JRPGs. And I hate when Japanese developers and publishers go, we need to make it westernized. Because like
I Yeah.
it doesn't fit their look at all. It makes them look stupid.
No, you lose the uniqueness of like what it's so redundant. It makes their games unique. But kind of stumbled in that one, but like yeah, I feel that's part of the disconnect between the Japanese devs and like how the Japanese game market has shrunk a lot and since like the 80s or whatever and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to the point now to where it's like a lot of them don't even console game anymore. It's all handheld based and it's all based in like mobile shit.
Yeah.
So their market now really since I guess the mid 2000s and they were just having problems figuring that out at the time has been primarily, Western, the rest of the world.
Well, I think they see like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Autos, and they go, "Wow, they're selling like millions and millions of copies. We want to be just like them."
Yeah, they feel like they need to follow those trends, and there's definitely some of that in this game.
Mm-hmm.
There's the spots where it's like this is like fuck. I'm having a firefight in a goddamn boat, and like just other shit. And a lot of fans, longtime fans of Capcom, weren't liking this stuff. Like they messed up Bionic Commando. They messed up like other stuff. Like it's so much. You can get into a whole series of videos of just Capcom trying to westernize in the seventh console generation or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. And
Big topic.
yeah, and like I said, every time they strike gold, it's like they take like 10,000 steps forward, but then they take like a million steps back. And to kind of go a little off topic a little bit, since we are talking about Resident Evil 4, there's rumors of a Resident Evil 4 remake coming out. or being worked on, I should say.
Yeah.
And a lot of sources are a lot of trusted sources are talking about it. We interviewed Nick Apostolides, which, by the way, on our YouTube channel, it jumped up in views because we did mention if there was a Resident Evil 4 remake, would he want to be Leon again?
Yeah.
And I believe he did say hell yeah or something along that line. And
He better be.
yeah, and I did show you a tweet where he is in mocap and he's doing like hashtag new project and stuff, and it made my noggin jogging, and I was like, oh, maybe that was Resident Evil 4 he was working on,
Could be.
which would be a lot of people give. Here's my thing: does this need a remake? No, I think it looks fine how it is because
I don't really agree.
Okay.
Just like, okay, like, have you played a recent HD version of this game?
Yeah, but does it really need a remake?
No, like graphically was the only thing I was saying about it that like really kind of hurts nowadays. I can't stand to play that game except on the native hardware that it originally came on. Otherwise, it looks fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that game was meant to go beyond 480 vertical line.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Like I read more of like what this Dust Golem guy has posted. Who's like one of the top noted leakers, and usually his shit tends to be accurate. Apparently, that's why people listen to him and just take it as, oh, this is happening. He's got a very high hit rate. He's said allegedly they started this project in 2018.
Jeez.
And this to me, all these pieces are kind of falling into place now. Like a few years before that, that's when they said we do Resident Evil 2. So at some point while they were doing that game, they also said, let's do Resident Evil 3. And then they said, let's do Resident Evil 4. So to me, I'm starting to think they came up with a plan.
I don't think we're ever going to get a Code Veronica remake. I'm putting...
Hey, Dust Golem says they listen to feedback more than what you think. And he said for everybody, hey, keep talking about Code Veronica. If you believe Dust Golem.
Yeah, because I really... And here's another franchise, like Dino Crisis really needs a remake.
It could. Fuck, that franchise doesn't even have a single identity. It just doesn't. Every game was different from the other one.
Yeah. I didn't know they made 3. I only played 1 and 2. That's how fucking like forgetful that game.
The third one was like not very good. It was like kind of bad, honestly.
I kind of want to get it and stream it. Just
same here. I've always wanted to try it out because it's like you're shooting dinosaurs in space and you're flying around with a jetpack and shit. Like, this sounds fucking cool, even if the game sucks.
Oh man, but yeah,
yeah,
it's just, I don't know. I guess we are really gonna get all the remakes now. Now, does that mean you think there's gonna be a Resident Evil 1 and 0 remake? I mean, I think they need to make a 0 remake.
I would be lying if I said I wouldn't want to see one engine. You know, like that wouldn't hurt my feelings if that never happened. I would be fine. But like honestly, I feel like if they're gonna do one, they either need to incorporate some of what 0 is into that, or just drop 0 because it breaks a lot of canon stuff anyway. There's so many like weird loose ends and stuff that happens from that game.
And I think they should either ignore 5 and 6 or retell it in a different way where they can combine the 2 games together. And just make a whole new story out of it.
This is what I'm kind of thinking. I guess I'm kind of hoping for, because this was like something I kind of came up with. I think before I might have mentioned this. I'm like, what if they're rebooting everything, and this is part of a reboot canon? And like they did 2, and they just did 3, and 2 kind of remained pretty similar to the original in terms of the story. They deviated in a few spots. 3's kind of different from the original 3, but it kind of ends up at the same destination no matter what. Uh, what if when they do this 4, like, what if hey, this is what I would do if I was them. I wouldn't even try to remake it the original 4. I'd try to do something different.
And that's another thing I want to bring up. And I know we're like straying off on a Resident Evil 5, but this is interesting because of 4, Resident Evil 4. But what with the remakes, especially 2 and 3, like 2 it kind of sticks to the storyline of the original, but there's a reimagination of it.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 is the same way. It's a reimagine of Resident Evil 3, the original. A lot of hardcore, and I know we're hardcore as well, but I guess we are in a minority that are kind of shitting on Resident Evil 3, where they're just like, oh, it's not like the original, so it's garbage.
Wait, we're not with them, or we are? Because I'm not.
Well, no, I said we're not. We're in a minority of that thinking.
I guess it seems to me like it's just split. Like I don't even know though. Like I heard the sales for this game was great. I mean, people kind of had their mind made up before it came out. I think.
Yeah, I just think people had high hopes or something
I
because
think so too. Yeah.
I think people were like, "Oh, Resident Evil 2 was had replay value," and Resident Evil 3, we're going off on a tangent here, but Resident Evil 3 has replay value. It just doesn't have the goodies of what Resident Evil 2 remake had, and
It's different.
it doesn't have the scenarios.
Yeah, and you can make an argument that like those scenarios aren't even really like they're not even as much as what the scenarios were in the original. That was always a sticking point for people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole other topic. Point being, I feel like if they were smart, this is part of a reboot strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to do Resident Evil 4, I think maybe they should try to go back to maybe the original concept a little bit of Resident Evil.
Yeah, so to kind of set up Resident Evil 8 a little bit to make it a little more sense of wolves and fucking paranormal witches.
I don't know. I don't even know about that. Like honestly, I'm starting to think like if I was running shit, I would have okay. You have the main continuity, and you have like an alternate reboot continuity or something. Just whatever. But yeah, you could look at it that way. I was talking about the initial concept, which was like where Leon gets infected and like he encounters like weird enemies in this European castle owned by Umbrella or something. Uh, there were just so many builds of that game. There was like the Hookman build, which has all the paranormal shit in it. And then there was the other one. I can't remember now. It had something to do with like sanity or some bullshit. I don't know.
I don't mind that the cult was in Resident Evil 4, but I kind of wish they go away from the Lost Plagas and they were just infecting themselves with like the T virus or something.
In
And
some like weird way, like them wanting to get away from zombies and like the virus monsters and stuff like that. It kind of homogenized like a lot of fighting in these later games.
mm-hmm.
Like a lot of them are just people, or it's like people with a tentacle shit coming out of their head, or they turn into a fat fuck and they explode, or they turn into a fat fuck that'll eat you whole, and there's nothing you can do about it if you get close enough.
Yeah.
It's just lame. It takes out all the enemy variety. Whereas it had zombies, and like now the zombies are really cool and they attack in really different ways. So like every zombie encounter is not going to be the exact same.
Yeah.
You got lickers, you got hunters, you got the gamma hunters, you got the poopy monsters in Resident Evil 2 remake. There's just a lot of different. Instead of just having guys sprouting tentacle shits out of them all the time.
Yeah, and that's why I said like if they do a reimagination, like get away from the Las Plagas a little bit, and they infect themselves with some type of new virus that Umbrella like, or they discovered or planted in this village or something to kind of see what would happen, and
The C virus.
yeah, and to see and to see like them slowly turn into like these zombies or whatever monsters they turn into.
Yeah.
Because when I started like people, I was like, this is stupid, but I wouldn't mind people slowly turning into a zombie. I think that would be really interesting to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Resident Evil 5.
This was related somewhat.
Yes. Lightning round. This is where we shoot the easy questions to get them out of the way. So I'll ask Zach the question, and then I'll give him my answer. What do you? Who do you prefer to play as in this game?
Well, I feel like it doesn't really make that much difference other than like what way your camera and character's oriented for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you play Chris, it's traditionally like he stands on the left side of the screen. If you play Sheva, it's like on the right. It's kind of weird and you got to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, there's no difference between them other than their melee animations.
I'll tell you what I like, and we had to change the character because I was Sheva in the beginning until a certain part where we're facing Wesker at the end, and there's a part with Sheva where she has to hang on, and I have to tap the button really, really, really fast, which I want to say when we got up to like the 30th try, um, me and Zach were just like, let's switch. I'll do it. And since he's more of a better pro gamer than me, he did it like in 2 minutes and hanged on, and we got to finish it. So I prefer to play as Chris Redfield because of that last level.
He also gets to punch the boulder.
Yes.
And honestly, like I will say this, when you go to melee people, it is honestly way more satisfying to just rear back and then punch them in the fucking face. That's just entertaining.
Hmm. All right. What is your favorite boss?
I guess Wesker in his human form.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think Wesker was probably the the other fights were fun, but they're not memorable in any way.
Some sucked. Some
the,
of the fights sucked.
yeah, the only memorable one that I'm always gonna remember is when we fought the troll with the turrets. And before we fought it, like there was a scene where he steps on one of the characters, and we just like burst out laughing.
He steps on the guy that saves him in the Hummer. He comes, he get done fighting the Wuhan bat, and he's just like, "Guys, get in!" And you guys get in, and you do a turret section where you shoot a bunch of poor people on motorcycles. I mean, that's what it is. That's what's happening. Like, you get to this weird village, and all of a sudden, there's a giant old El Gigante because he has a big gray beard,
Mm-hmm.
and you just it's all quiet and everything, and they're like, "Jesus, they wiped the whole unit out." And it just shows Chris, and he's like, he's all fucking devastated because more of his comrades have died. And Sheva's just like, I can't believe this. And then it shows like that third guy, I can't even fucking remember his name. He turns around, and he's just dead. It's just so funny.
Yeah, that was a funny, but like the Wesker one was fun because I don't know, like I guess the human form was interesting on how we fought him because it's like, oh, this kind of feels like the Matrix if the Matrix made a game. And
You had to figure out how to fight him. That was the thing.
mm-hmm.
It wasn't like the lame. How the fuck do we burn this thing in the furnace? Why do our bullets not do anything? I guess we'll knife this guy after we hit him with the flamethrower.
And it's not like he had like fuck me lights on, so we just had to we figured it out the old fashioned way.
Also, he catches rockets and throws them away. And then eventually he gets so pissed at you, he throws missiles at you.
Yeah, and he also has a one shot kill if he charges you and like I guess like chokes you out or like does a karate chop to your throat. Kind of like the Terminator in Terminator 2, the liquid guy. Like
Yeah.
he just like stabs you with his hand.
Yeah.
And that happened to me once because I was like, "Ooh, let me rocket him here," and he just like came walking really slow, and then he just cut me, and it was a one shot kill.
Shabba!
The quick time events, the deaths were funny as hell as well.
Yeah.
Remember,
Especially when they're in the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always my favorite. I like to watch all the death animations there.
Yeah, because every time we got up to that part, we were like, "Oh, just fail it. Let's see what happens," and it was usually hilarious. Favorite part of the game?
Hmm. Let me think. It's not like, oh, I hate this game, because I actually don't hate this game. Um, Geez. I guess I like. I kind of like going through all those. It's not really a village. I guess it's more like a town. Like all those kind of town areas in the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That felt most like Resident Evil 4 and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And more Resident Evil y than what the rest of the game kind of did. Even like when there was like, oh, we found a big lab, which by the way, the lab's just a giant ripoff of the labs in the movies.
Yeah.
You could just say this is like when the game started trying to emulate the movies more.
Yep.
Um, I liked fighting with Wesker and Jill, and when you fight Wesker again later, which we just talked about.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. But I like the Jill fights more because of how fucking like we were tag team wrestling her, and every time she gained offense, you just like grabbed her, and
It's like, get her. Yeah.
it was just funny when we had to pull off the bug beetle on her tits. Um, all right, favorite weapon in the game.
Hmm. Um, I'm gonna go with I guess the assault rifle. Just because up to that point, up to this point, we've reached. There never really has been an assault rifle in a Resident Evil game.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the first time. So it's like, oh shit. I mean, well, no, wait, hang on. Code Veronica, you were able to get that AK-47.
Yeah,
So, well, whatever. This is like the only other time it happened. You had way more ammo.
yeah.
So I was like, oh my god. And there was like 3 of them too. Like they were all different. I mean, there was an MP5 technically. It's not an assault rifle.
Yeah, there was a lot of variety in this game, but I guess I have to stick with my main man, the shotgun. I love the shotgun in this game.
The shotgun was very useful, just like how it was in Resident Evil 4.
Yes, when there's a bunch of people, you just spray and pray, and it usually worked. So I dig that. The last question in the lightning round says, "What is your best rank? What rank did we get? Do you remember?"
Oh god, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I don't ever pay enough attention to that shit.
Hmm.
I just like I've never really been like a rank guy. I was just like I'm playing this game again just because I like it and I get through it and I'm just like, oh, I'm done. Hey, that was cool. I got my rank, and then I just forget about it immediately.
I want to say I had a better rank in this one than my first playthrough, because in the first playthrough I died a lot because I didn't have a friend to play with. So
Yeah,
I'll go
you
with
just had
that.
that shitty AI partner.
Yeah, and I remember if you thought I died a lot and when I was playing with you, I died a million times by myself.
No wonder you fucking hated this game.
Yeah.
I would have hated it too.
All right, so we're done with the lightning round, and we're gonna get into the final countdown, where we are gonna place Resident Evil 5 in the list. Uh, and if people are watching on YouTube, I know that I usually put the list in editing at the end, but since we are doing this live and I do have video going on and everything, the final video when we finally get to the end is when I'm gonna showcase our final list. But I still want to talk about it here. So I'll go first, Zach, since I don't see you, Resident Evil 5 on the list on your list yet. But I'll do mine. I'll start from top all the way to bottom. So number one, I have Resident Evil 3, the original. I have to say that now since the remake is out. Number two is Resident Evil 2 Remake. Number three is Resident Evil 2 1998. Number four is blank. Number five, Resident Evil 1. And then number six, I have Resident Evil 1 Remastered. Seven, I have Resident Evil 0. Eight, I have Resident Evil Code Veronica. Nine, I have Resident Evil 4. 10, I have Resident Evil Survivor slash Dead Aim. And then I have 11, 12 blank. And then 13 is where I'm going to put Resident Evil 5. And then obviously 14 and 15 blank. So what about you?
I'm gonna make some revisions to my list too, actually, because some time has passed and I've reflected on some things more.
Okay.
I'm gonna I originally had Resident Evil 2 remake at 2 and the original at 3. I'm gonna swap those now.
Okay.
Just because like as time's gone by, I still really like that game, but honestly, the original still edge it out.
Okay.
And I also wanted to make a motion to separate Resident Evil Survivor and Dead Aim and make them separate entries.
Okay. So that means I have to make it. We have to make it a 16 list now.
Because I was thinking about like, yeah, where 5 goes, and it inevitably made me think about the whole list again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, honestly, like Resident Evil Survivor is not that bad of a game. It's just so bad. It's weird. It has this so bad it's good quality to it,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But it causes me to enjoy it more than certain other entries in this series.
Yeah. So I had 11 blank before, so I'm gonna put Resident Evil Dead Aim at number 11. Still
I'm
keep.
just gonna I'm gonna still keep it down here at 14 now, just because I don't still know where this is gonna really end up.
Mm-hmm.
But I am gonna put it ahead of Resident Evil Zero.
Okay.
That might be controversial for people, but
Dive into die.
yeah. So I got Resident Evil 1 remake at 1, Resident Evil 2 98 at 2, Remake 2 at 3, RE4 at 4, RE3 at 5, the original Resident Evil at 6, Code Veronica at number 7, 5 at number 8, Survivor at 9, and 0 at 10.
Okay. And then obviously you have 13 and 14, which oh,
They're blank. They're
they're
just blank.
okay. Um, and that is the final countdown. Um, we're gonna do something. We're gonna plan it here live. Resident Evil 3 remake did come out. So that means we're probably gonna halt Resident Evil 6 for a little bit because that is a beefy game, by the way. Resident Evil 6.
Yeah, it's going to take some time.
And me and Zach already beat Resident Evil 3 remake, so that will be our next recording. It's just a matter of when. So keep an eye out for that, and we will talk about Resident Evil 3 remake. But that is there any final things you want to talk about, Zach, before we sign off?
Oh, we're also going to talk about the books sometime. This won't have any kind of bearing on our list here or anything, but it's related.
Hmm.
And we've talked about it before, and I've kind of got everything set up to where we can just we're not going to have like a list of things to go through like we do with these games usually. We're just going to have like a discussion overall about the books and everything.
Yeah. Which the books are cool. They have some good backstory.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll probably start having odd entries like that in between, like stop gaps. Like, I kind of wanted to talk about like those Wii light gun games at some point too. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to put them on this fucking list or not, but I don't remember what we said. But if they don't, it's like, hey, we can still talk about it.
Well, I don't know if I ever said this, but like this podcast was made so that we could rank all the Resident Evil games. And since we interviewed Nick Apostolides, uh, we thought about maybe we can expand this podcast into a Resident Evil or maybe at least a survival horror type of podcast in a way.
Oh boy.
So, I mean, maybe you might see Silent Hill in some fashion. It would be weird to call it the Nemesis Project, but whatever.
What sucks about Silent Hill though is like I don't want to do a Silent Hill project because you'll play like the first 4 games, then it's like fuck this, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with this anymore.
Oh no, dude! Like we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do another ranking because obviously with the Resident Evil ranking, it took a while, and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
With Silent Hill, like I would probably take some stories out of it and talk about it. It's mostly gonna be us playing the game and then just us discussing like weird things about it.
Yeah.
Like the lore. I mean, we're not gonna rank it or anything. It's gonna be different. So keep an eye out on the structure for that. And there's also a lot of fan games that are Resident Evil as well that I do want to play.
Interesting.
So
I don't know much about that.
yeah, there's a fan made game where you know the part where Ada Wong disappears in Resident Evil 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody made a game out of that.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I do want to get into that. But if you want to watch more podcasts, we do have 3 active podcasts. We have Big Trouble Little Podcast, which we do movies, and which we are steering towards gaming and movies. So keep an eye on that. We should be coming back within a week, I believe. I don't know what we're doing, but we're coming back. Then we also have Getting Some Color, which we did WrestleMania 27 and 17 or X7, however you want to say it.
24.
Yeah, 24, not 27, my bad. I don't know what we're doing with that either because, I mean, WWE is apparently essential now. So
Well, it's not essential to me as long as there's no fucking fans in the arena.
yeah. So, that podcast is probably going to be going into our creative pool of seeing how we're going to be doing that. And we
We're
also
going to reach into our bag of tricks for that.
Yeah, and then we also have this podcast, the Nemesis Project. And where do you find this stuff? You go to novnetwork.podbean.com. We're also on Apple iTunes, Spotify, if you search Nerd Review Network. We also have a website that I haven't been updating, which I will since, this pandemic, I have more time. So keep an eye on that. But until next time, zombies, Resident Evil, Nemesis Project. See you later.
Peace.